Rico Nasty, Las Ruinas, mixtape review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest mixtape from the one and only Rico Nasty. MC, songwriter, a modern obsession of mine. She's been piquing my interest for the last few years. Now, she's been dropping mixtapes for quite a while now, but she really caught my ear around the 2018 release of her mixtape Nasty. Here, she started a working relationship with producer Kenny Beats and, no pun intended, released one of the nastiest, most aggressive, and over-the-top releases of the year. This thing was absolutely cold-blooded, filled with booming beats and braggadocious bars that she can back up with no help whatsoever. And most importantly, she had what I needed in hip-hop most of the time, and that was personality. She had personality to spare. Instantly, I was super hooked on her style. And if that wasn't enough to really hook me, 2019's Anger Management, a full-length mixtape with Kenny Beats, made me a full-blown fan. This tape is killer. Her flows here are absolutely relentless, and this tape overall was everything that I really needed in hip-hop at the time. I mean, the personality alone, Jesus. And if that wasn't enough, late in 2020, she dropped one of my favorite albums of the year with Nightmare Vacation. As far as an official release goes, this was her best to date. It showed her keeping her style, keeping her flows really nasty, no pun intended. Her personality was intact, and most importantly, it showed her branching out into some hyperpop as well, which she had done with a working relationship and collaborations with the likes of Charlie XCX. Now, this is her first mixtape in a while, and leading up to this, we got some very solid singles, nothing too absolutely wowing, but still very solid enough to really make me excited for this thing. Let's chat about it. Las Ruinas starts off with Intrusive, and honestly, I think it's a pretty great intro. This thing is pretty wild. It's got a booming beat, some pretty solid production, and Rico herself sounds like a damn caged animal here. It's noisy, it's raw, and most importantly, Rico shows off the same personality that she has shown for years. I'm really honestly very hyped for this as an intro, and most importantly, it makes me excited to listen to the rest of the tape. She follows that up with Vaderz. This one is a little bit more hip-hop oriented. It reminds me a lot of her Anger Management tape. And no pun intended, it is nasty. This thing is raw. It is ruthless. It'll punch you right in the face and not say sorry. It is an absolute banger. I could say a lot of the same things about Black Punk. This one actually took me a lot to grow on me. Truthfully, I didn't really appreciate it until I heard the rest of the tape. It's gnarly. It's got a sort of gothic edge. It almost reminds me of like what Backwash is doing these days. It is a really gothic tinged trap banger, and she honestly owns the hell out of it. The bulky beat and the dreary production are enough to really round this track out, be icing on the cake, and the beat that sort of pops in later on in the track, the very dreary ethereal beat, is really nice as well. Phuckin Lady is really nice too. I love the synth driven beat that picks up really quickly here. It's a little something different from Rico, but her personality definitely makes it her own. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of the hyperpop that we got on her last recording, Nightmare Vacation, but it's a little bit more streamlined. We get the braggadocious bars and her personality as well as an obscene amount of confidence. This track is great. As far as a strictly hip-hop tune goes, don't look no further than Gotsta Get Paid. This track is awesome. I love the weirdo, sort of wonky, left field production that we get here, and the whining instrumental that we get here is weird as well. But it's all about Rico here. It is so over the top and ridiculous. This is the kind of bars that we used to get from her in the early days that made me a fan to begin with. She is a damn wizard. Then we get Watch Your Man featuring Marshmallow. I mean, truth be told, I worried about this track from a distance. I mean, Marshmallow? Rico? Nasty? Really? Truthfully though, they have a lot of great chemistry together. The very upbeat sort of instrumental that we get here is actually really refreshing for Rico. The explosive groove here brings out her more over-the-top side, which is something that I always love to hear. It's really intense, and I did not expect that for an electronic hip-hop tinged banger. Look no further. Rico continues to grow and change as an artist, which is a really great thing that I always salute. The only issue is the sharp decrease here. When this album is bad, or should I say this mixtape is bad, it's really bad. Take, for example, Messy. I don't want to be that guy, but this track is really messy. Tizo Touchdown. This guy just does nothing for me still. His sung hook on this track is about as exciting as nothing. It sticks out as a real sore thumb on this album. And because of that, the rest of this track kind of falls apart. The beat is not nearly as interesting as a lot of the other tracks we get here. The production isn't as raw as well, and that's a shame because Rico actually has some really great one-liners, but I don't know, this track just doesn't do it for me as a whole. 1 on 5, on the other hand, is a little bit too much of Rico on Cruise Control. I just feel like I've heard this exact track from her too many times, and I feel like this chorus is just so average. I mean, it's not that bad, but outside of that, this track is so cookie cutter. Blow Me, on the other hand, it's not for me. I mean, on paper, it's not bad. It's got some great lines, but this just isn't what I show up for from Rico Nasty. This low energy flow here, God, who asked for this? I mean, yeah, it's got some steamy bars, but that can only do so much. I just know that she could do so much better. The Jungle remix as well. Truthfully, this one's a tough one because as far as modern bangers and EDM goes, this track's not that bad. It actually goes pretty hard, and truthfully, Rico's got some great bars. But does this remix really deserve a spot on this mixtape? The Always skit kinda just sucks. Don't let this title confuse you. This is far from a skit. This is 3 minutes of filler, and I don't think we needed that. Easy really isn't that much better. I mean, her poppy side, it's actually not that bad. When she pulls out a pop banger, it's usually pretty good. There's plenty more examples of that here. But this overly dramatic acoustic ballad is just not it. It's certainly telling and incredibly personal, but I just didn't think this was about the way about doing a track like this. We'll get more into that later. But there are a lot of late moments here that do sort of win me over. Dance Scream sort of shows off a different side of this project, much like Nightmare Vacation did, a much poppier side. This is, to an extent, Rico Nasty going for a more pop rap tune. And truthfully, yeah, that sounds a little iffy from a distance. But the bubbly, sweet beat in her performance here, which gets, oddly, really emotional, I didn't expect it, but it works really nicely. When we get to tracks like Skullflower, like, where are we even going anymore? This track is even poppier, but then we get the wonkier side of production and the vocal effects. Like, where even are we? I mean, she has touched down on the sort of hyper pop and future pop that's popular right now in the past, but this is next level. It's freakish and weird, but it's also oddly catchy and really infectious. It almost reminds me of like some Crystal Castles in a weird way. I don't know, but I'm really loving it. And Focus on Me is a track that I did not expect to hear here at all. This is some Charlie XCX level, really emotional hyperpop. It's quirky and fun, but it's also super deep and unbearably personal. This is a sound that I didn't even know that she could touch down on, but it's also incredibly close to home and personal, like almost shockingly so. It's also really infectious. Like, I can't get this track out of my head. It's really good. I wouldn't mind hearing a whole album like this. Into the Dark is also a really hard left turn. If things weren't already taking a turn for the weird, check this track out. This is practically an industrial, grimy banger that has seriously tortured vibes to it. It's deeply depressive, and it's not nearly as much of a banger as other tracks on here. It's not as explosive either, but it shows Rico really pushing boundaries, and I like that. But Chicken Nugget is sort of tough as a finale. On one hand, I really love the production, the beat as well. This is some of the classiest stuff we've heard here. Not only that, but her lyrics here are, I mean, if you think that other tracks here are deep and personal, get a load of this. This is intense. It's actually pretty incredible. But then we get the vocal effects on here and her performance on here, and I almost think that it just doesn't live up to the hype. It just ends up being a little goofy and bringing things down. I wish I could like this track. I wish I could love this tape. It's very solid. It shows Rico really, really pushing herself, but the consistency is an issue. There's a lot of tracks on here. A good bulk of this album that's very good material that shows her pushing towards the future, pushing herself, which is something that I will always salute. But the thing is, the drop-off here, when the material here is bad, it's some of the worst material I've heard Rico put out in a really, really long time. That makes things kind of tough. I mean, I still think it's worth a listen, but honestly, like, I think that she could do better because she's proved it in the past. Still, very solid tape in modern hip-hop, especially the more experimental side and even the more poppier side. There's a lot of great stuff on here, but for now, I'm feeling a light 7 on this tape, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.